Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. And besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fan fiction it inspires. Before we begin, just want to remind you to like, subscribe, follow wherever you listen to us so you don't miss any episodes or bonus stuff that we do. I'm Sandra.
I'm Karlee, and it's episode 3, y'all. It's episode 3, Fact versus Fiction. Fact versus Fiction. There's a tagline that goes along with this. I wasn't prepared. Sorry. Fact versus Fiction. Dispelling some of the more common myths and incorrect fanfic tropes. So we've covered, I guess, maybe the basics of anal sex and, be liberal with your lube. We've covered that. We've covered Sandra's request. We've opened the floodgates, squirting, female ejaculation, and all that good stuff. So we are back in territory that Karlee is slightly more comfortable with this week. This week, it is SSC versus RAC. And I appreciate that on the basis of that, you might not know what any of that means. So BDSM is huge. It's enormous. And there are not enough fact versus fictions in the world for me to go through every single bit of BDSM. But these are important. And I see them quite a lot in Fic. I use them myself in Fic. So we figured, let's explore this one particular section of BDSM. What it means, safety, blah, 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 blah. All that good stuff. So, disclaimers before we begin. Disclaimer the first. I am by no means an expert in BDSM. Not even close, okay? I'm just a mortal who knows some stuff, okay? I've done some stuff, read some stuff, I know some stuff. I just know a little bit, right? Enough to be dangerous, I think would be a good way to put it. So, I'm not an expert. Please don't take anything that is said as, solid facts. Do your own research before delving into the world of kink, any kink, however light and fluffy that might be. Do your own research. Be safe, be sane, and for the love of God, make sure things are consensual, okay? Disclaimer the first. Disclaimer the second. I'm also not a sex expert. Good Lord, this episode is great for my self-esteem. I'm not any of these things, guys. I'm not a sex expert. Despite repeated attempts to pass the exams, they keep telling me no. This episode is for entertainment and fictional writing purposes only, and it is not intended to replace actual medical advice. If you have concerns about your intimate health, please see a medical professional. Please don't take anything. If I say something in any fact versus fiction episode, don't be like, well, Karlee said it, so it's probably fine. Check with a doctor, y'all. I'm not an expert, all right? I know enough to be dangerous. That's it. I suppose, if we're going to start, we should probably start with what is BDSM. If you know, that's great. Skip ahead. If you don't, settle down. I'll run you through the basics. So BDSM, it's weirdly, it's an acronym that has acronyms within it. So you can separate it into BD, which is bondage and discipline, DS, which is dominant and submissive, and SM, which is sadomasochism or sadism and masochism. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I don't have to explain any of those words. Google it. Yeah. So it's just a catch-all phrase for anything outside of vanilla sex. And then I suppose that leads you on to the question of, well, what is vanilla sex? What would you classify as vanilla versus kink? And that's a whole different story, okay? You draw your own lines. What I consider vanilla, Sandra might consider really kinky. Let's not get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Draw your own lines. Pulled directly from Wikipedia, link in the Google Doc that will accompany this episode. BDSM is a variety of often erotic practices, because you can have BDSM that's totally platonic. Practices of role-playing involving bondage, discipline, dominance, and submission, and sadomasochism. And all of those words and links to the related Wikipedia articles as well. I've been, guys, good this episode. So good. So many links and shit. I'm not here to get into all the different parts of BDSM. As I said, we'd be here to like next Christmas, like Christmas 2025. It would be like a just enormous, guys, enormous. But specifically, SSC and RAC. These are the ones that you see tagged most often in fics. Leading on to our next question. Again, this is one of Karlee's wonderful Google documents that flows in a pattern, because otherwise my brain goes funny. What is SSC and RAC? The best, easiest way to explain them would be that they are codes of behavior or conduct. They are not sexual acts. They are not like specific scenes or specific kinks or anything. They are the foundations upon which you would build everything from. They are just simple acronyms, and they very loosely define a scene, how a scene should play out before you start adding in participants and like, you know, scene like a role play or sexual acts or anything like that. This is the bedrock that you would start building from. And they cover the same kind of things, but in different ways. We'll start with the first one, SSC. And I've deliberately not told you what it stands for. Yay. SSC. It stands for safe, sane, and consensual. This is the most well-known one. This is if you're new to kink, if you're just starting to like have a look around Google, you know, see what's out there, see what's happening. Maybe you've got half an idea of something that might interest you. This is the thing that you're going to see first and most often, most common. It is the first kind of code of behavior or conduct that was ever sort of put down into words, and it was coined in the 80s. But there are Wikipedia links and things like that that describe it as well. But it was in the 80s. I think it might have been like a bar or something. And basically they coined like this place, this venue, as a place for gay men who wanted to engage in S&M in a safe, sane, consensual way. That was the first place to ever kind of like put it down into words. You know, this is what we're about here. So let's break it down. Safe. This means in this particular acronym, all the acts within the scene are safe to all participants. Now, on the surface of it, that seems pretty reasonable, right? But we'll get into why that's maybe not as reasonable as it first appears. And as times change, that meaning has shifted as well. So some people will use SSC to mean safe, as in none of the sex acts within the scene are inherently dangerous to any person. And some people use it to mean that the participants within the scene feel safe with each other, even if the acts themselves are not strictly speaking safe in big quote marks. But that's the first bit. Second bit, sane. All participants are sound of mind and in a state to consent. That's kind of gatekeepery, but if you're playing with kink, and especially the more advanced kind of scenes and acts and things that you can get into, you need to be in a stable state of mind. So that's not to say that people with, for example, mental health issues shouldn't participate in, you know, shouldn't be a part of the kink community, shouldn't be able to participate in scenes, but they have to be stable. You couldn't, it would be unethical to scene with someone who, let's say, had schizophrenia and was in a manic state. You know, they might seem really enthusiastic and they might be telling you that everything's fine, but it would be unethical because they are not in a stable state of mind at that moment. Extrapolating out from that, it means that nobody's under the influence of any mind-altering substances. So nobody's drunk, nobody's high, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing like that. Everybody is sober and stable and sane. Again, it looks fine on the surface, but if you dig a little bit deeper, you will start to see the kind of issues that come up with that. And the third part of it, consensual. So everybody gives consent. And that's, you would think that would come as a given, but kink is not that black and white, is it? So there are acts, you can consent to doing acts that you don't like. You know, consensual non-consent is a thing. Within SSC, that kind of consensual means that nobody's going to do anything that the other person doesn't like, even in the context of a role play or a scene. You know, we're talking sort of very basic, your first steps into kink here. So as much as sane negates people who are under the influence of any mind-altering substances, so does consensual. People under the influence cannot consent fully. You know, if we're taking this model, that is what that means. So we've all seen those, drunk people can't give consent, things like that, date rape, da, 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 da. That is the kind of meaning that we're implying here. If you are under the influence, you cannot give consent. Another thing to bear in mind is power imbalances also negate consent. So a boss and an employee could not perform a scene that would be classed as safe, sane, and consensual because there's an inherent power imbalance there. Student and teachers, anything where somebody is in a position of authority above another person. And unfortunately, certain types of age gap relationships can fall under that as well. There's nothing wrong with age gap relationships. There is a problem with power gap relationships. And that would fall under this model as well. You have to be on an equal footing to be able to give consent. So SSC it's a constant cycle. If you're not sane, you can't give consent. If you can't give consent, it's not safe. If it's not safe, it's not sane. And the cycle goes round and round. So I've just dumped a whole lot of information on you there. Sandra, do you have any questions? Just give me a chance to breathe.
Like just taking it all in, like you said, it becomes this cycle where if not one thing, then another, then another. I just think it makes it very responsible for every partner that's involved in the situation. It just takes a lot of preparation and investment in what's going on. And I think that could be something that some people just aren't maybe even emotionally mature enough to consider before getting involved in something like this. Like I know you and many others and myself included, like the one thing that keeps coming to my mind that kind of got just thrown at people as that's what, they could see as an example is 50 Shades. And that's not, the best example, but the only thing I could think of that I pulled out of that was like the contract part of it, where it seems like there would need to be a lot of discussion, in advance. And that I think could be, I mean, if you're interested in doing it, a bit much, but then I also feel when you talk about safe and consensual and all that, and I know you said, we'll get more into it in another time, but the wanting to please your partner and maybe thinking, something safe enough or you're consenting and then you get into a situation where this was not what I expected. So it's almost like how knowledgeable do you need to be in preparation for something like that? And I think that somebody's people pleasing, I think could maybe overshadow them saying they're ready for something that they aren't. And then that would be the responsibility of the other partner to know, we need to take a break, or this is not a thing. Yeah. That we should be doing right now.
That's the kind of that like even that kind of thing falling under people pleasing and things like that, that falls under, sane and just basic safety methods that you take. The way I would liken this to is it's a seatbelt in a car. Okay. You should always, if you do nothing else, you should always abide by, not abide by, these are not like cast iron, the rules, but these should always be in your mind. If you're gonna, scene with somebody, if you're gonna be in, if you're gonna put yourself in a situation where you're gonna be playing with kink and you're gonna be in a scene with somebody, these should be in the back of your mind. It's your seatbelt in the car. And you can, as you learn to drive, you can learn to do increasingly dangerous stunts with the car, but you should always have your seatbelt on. It's that kind of thing, This is stone one, if you want to use a supernatural reference. This is where you should start. Once you've got a feel for this is when you would start to move into maybe heavier kink, more intense things. But this is where you've got to start. If you reach out to your, sort of your local BDSM community and you express interest in wanting to learn how to sub or learn how to how to dominate, or you want to learn how to use a piece of equipment or something like that. These are the rules that you and your partner, whether they're training you, whether they're going to sub for you, whether they're going to be your dom, whatever, you should be playing within these rules. Okay? This is like step one. Once you've mastered this, you can move on to different places. But if you are new, this is what you should be focusing on.
So what happens to all the people that have, unfortunately, maybe not gotten the best education in this, and then they, meet another partner? Like, I mean, is it just a matter of relearning or establishing? Because I could see a lot of people thinking they know what they're doing and they don't. And then, I don't know, just, having to relearn it.
To be quite frank, somebody who has not learned how to scene carefully and appropriately, and then goes on to scene with other people, I would call that person abusive, because that's what it is. If you're not playing within a set of rules, and it doesn't have to be SSC, you can make your own rules within the spirit of things. But if you're not playing within the rules, whatever those may be, that is abuse. You are not, if everybody in the scene does not know and cannot put a stop to things if they are uncomfortable, you're just beating somebody up. It's that simple. If one participant does not have either the knowledge or the ability to say no, stop, I don't want this anymore, then that is not a consensual exchange of power. That's abuse. That's assault. That's, injuring somebody. So I personally would always be wary of someone who claims to be, I don't want to generalize, but it's usually guys who claim to be doms. And then when you probe a little bit further, they have no concept of a traffic light system or a safe word. And they don't know that in most scenes, all scenes, I would say, the submissive has the power, because they are letting you do whatever you are doing to them. They are allowing it. They can stop it at any time, and they are allowing you to continue. They hold the power of the scene. Anybody who does not recognize and acknowledge that, that's not somebody the community would claim, in my opinion. I would be wary.
I guess I'm just thinking it too of like somebody from like maybe a sub perspective who maybe has been, I don't know, like abused or taken advantage of or something like that. And then, how would a responsible dom work on, would somebody take that responsibility to kind of help them through it again? Like that's just my thinking of it too when I was thinking about that. Cause like somebody who's possibly, who's been abused or, that sort of, I mean, but I guess that just goes into other whole relationship scenarios of trust and things like that. But yeah, I was just kind of thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is as much as mainstream media doesn't want to do anything but paint the BDSM / kink community in horrific lights and, glorify things like 50 Shades. A relationship between a sub and a dom is as intense and emotional and truly valid as any other relationship, be that romantic or platonic. It's just another form of relationship. So would there be a dom out there that would meet a sub who has had a whole heap of really bad experiences and still be willing to, form a relationship with them, take them right back to stone one and show them how it's supposed to be? Well, yeah, because there are 1,000 million people out there that would meet somebody who has been abused in any other type of relationship and be willing to engage with them in a relationship and work with them to see how it should be.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of getting at too. It's like, just any other type of, whatever you're trying to build yourself back from in any situation, relationship wise, there has to be another person that's willing to. I just didn't know, like, if that would scare, you know what I mean? Like, just like in other types of relationships, sometimes that's a scary proposition because you don't know, you don't know what you're going to encounter
Yeah.
during a scene or during a moment, and then you kind of have to reset and all those kinds of things. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
all. That's where my brain was going with that. Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. No, that's what we're here for. Education, sex education with Karlee. So on the surface of SSC, safe, sane, and consensual, that's good, right? It's reasonable. All the rules make sense. Everybody's going to be safe, and it's fine. But when you actually look at it properly, it's pretty ambiguous. So, what is safe and sane to me, Sandra may view as utter insanity and potential death. It's not. There's not just one. You can't categorize things as this is this level of safe. This is this level of safe. This is da 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 da. It's different for every single purpose. There are things that I would be comfortable with that, like, for example, my husband, my life partner of almost 12 years, is vastly uncomfortable with, and as such, we do not engage with because he's not comfortable. So we don't do it.
Mm-mm.
It's ambiguous. You cannot categorize things as safe and unsafe. And if you were to attempt to, what is safe, really? Nothing in life is truly safe. I'm on my computer on Zoom with Sandra now. I could get an electric shock. I could fall out of my chair and break a limb. Anything can happen. Nothing in life is inherently safe.
Mm-hmm.
If we just look at sex, you can get injured in regular missionary vanilla pull me nighty down when you're done sex. That probably went right over your head, didn't it?
No, I got it.
I don't know, that's a really British phrase, and I was like, oh, whoops, that might have gone. Yeah,
No, I got it.
Absolute, old-timey sex, feet over your head. You can still get injured. There is the propensity for injury in, I don't want to keep saying normal, but vanilla, socially acceptable sex, And that's before you've even got out a bit of rope or a handcuff or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything has an inherent level of danger. So if you were going to play exclusively within the rules of SSC, well, you'd never do anything because everything has an inherent level of danger.
Mm-hmm.
So SSC is a great place to start. But after it come about and people in the kink community were kind of adjusting to this, there were people saying exactly what I just said. Well, nothing is safe. How do you categorize something as safe? That leads us on to the next step, which is RAC. And this is also a code of behavior, just like SSC. And this one was coined in the kind of like the late 90s when, the kink community was really well established and things. And people were starting to say, well, nothing is inherently safe. You have to take personal responsibility for what you're doing. And they coined the term risk-aware consensual kink. Right. It's great. It's a nice little acronym. I like it. It sounds a bit more intimidating than safe, sane, and consensual, doesn't it? So risk-aware, RA. Everybody in the scene, and I keep saying everybody in participants because not every scene is one dom and one sub. You can have multiple participants in a scene. So I'm never just going to be like one person. But risk aware, everybody is aware that whatever is going to happen in this scene may not be entirely safe, but everybody is aware of it. Now, that sounds really dramatic, but I would like you to bear in mind, you can cause nerve damage if you tie somebody up incorrectly. Candle wax can cause bad burns if you're not using the right kind of wax, if you're not aware of how to do wax play properly, things like that. Impact play can be so dangerous. Let's say, for example, you have a whip and you are whipping someone's back. Just one little off adjustment of the wrist and you can hit somebody's kidneys. And that is so dangerous. Risk aware doesn't necessarily mean that the sub or someone in the scene is going to be beaten bloody and unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. That's not the impression that I want to give you. that if you're playing within a rack set of rules that everybody's going to walk away limping and bleeding. That's not. It's just a personal awareness that inherently these things that we are doing because we enjoy them are not necessarily safe. So, C, consensual. It's the same thing as it means in SSC. Everybody is consensual. It's fine. Kink doesn't mean anything. It just rounds it off nicely, doesn't it? It just makes it a nice little acronym. I suspect because there is some kind of crossover between, especially rack, within kink, like sex kind of space, but also within extreme sports, which also, if you think about it, holds the same similar kind of rules. You know, scaling a mountain with boots in bare hands is not ever going to be safe because you are risk aware and you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. You
bring your buddies along to scale that mountain. Well, everybody needs to consent to scaling that mountain and being aware that there is inherent risk involved. Yeah. So there's a lot of overlap. So kink is just like, this bit's for sex. It do round it off quite nicely. I'm a huge fan. So I was doing research for this and I have a list of links at the bottom of the Google Doc. But one thing I found when I was looking at it, and it's from a website called submissiveguide.com. And the difference between these two terms is, this is a direct quote from the website, the difference between the two terms is even more clear when the spirit of them is applied in the public scene. So when watching a scene that may involve some heavy risk, you might hear the person next to you whisper to their partner, they shouldn't do that, it's unsafe, that is a dangerous dominant. That is the spirit of SSC. If you hear whispered, I wonder if he knows the risk involved in doing that. I wonder if he does this, it could be made safer. I think I'll tell him about it later after his scene. That is the spirit of rack. So rack is much, much more focused on personal responsibility. And that you can never make something truly safe. You can only make everybody as aware as possible of the risks involved. And again, kink can be really heavy. You know, it can be bloody. It can be gross, depending on your personal gross things. You know, there can be the propensity for real and serious injury that people consent to. You have to be aware. You cannot just go, everything must be safe, you know? So that's why I say SSC is great when you're just starting out because it's easy to keep things safe. Then, you know, you're taking things slow, you're learning things at an appropriate pace. You know, you're not really playing with anything heavy duty. But once you feel more confident, you may choose to only ever want to play within the bounds of SSC. That may be your comfort level. And, you know, it doesn't have to be SSC, those are the rules, but within your own personal rule set that aligns with SSC. And that just may be where you're set, where you feel safe and where you feel you have the best experience. But people want more. Wherever the line is, there will always be somebody that wants to push it a bit further and a bit further and a bit further. And that's where rack comes in. That is, you can apply rack to the absolute very basics of learning how to dom or sub or, you know, learning how to use various implements that you might use in the scene. You can apply rack to that as well, but it's more, I guess, flexible would be the right term. You know, it puts more onus on the people within the scene than how you should play in a kink space, you know? So I have a handy dandy chart. It's from a different website, but I have this little chart. So this is from a website called Kink Theory 101, and there is a link down in the description. So they categorize SSC and rack as thusly. SSC, safe. Partners feel a mutual sense of safety when engaging in a kink with one another. So that comes back to what I said earlier on. The terminology is evolving. It's that you feel safe with your partner more than the acts are safe, you know? Sane, partners mutually agree on what sane means for them. Consensual. Partners mutually consent to engaging in the kinky activity. I'm just going to go back to that because I'm about to go through the rack section of that handy dandy guide. Another thing that rack opens the doors to is playing under the influence. So if SSC says you cannot be sane and consenting if you are under the influence, rack says as long as you are aware of the dangers, go forth. Some people enjoy playing while drugged, while high, while drunk, any variation thereof. Somnophilia is a really common kink, which is, I'm trying to think if it comes from the sleeping partner or the awake partner. Somnophilia is sexual arousal from a sleeping partner. So it can be the sleeping partner that is aroused by someone having sex with them while they are sleeping, or it can be the awake partner who is aroused by having sex with someone who does not know. Or you can have consensual somnophilia, and you can have non-consensual somnophilia, but some people take drugs to achieve that kind of unconscious state. So rack expands, it's flexible for that kind of thing. So back to the kink theory handy dandy chart. Rack, risk aware. Partners have an equal knowledge and understanding of the risks involved in the activity. Consensual, partners mutually consent to engaging in the kinky activity. And kink, let's trouse it off nice. No, I'm kidding. Not every kinky activity is safe and sane. Acknowledging this risk is critical to this approach. So, again, it's very much personal responsibility. So if we go back to my car metaphor, for example, which is pretty clumsy, I'll admit. When you first start to learn to drive a car, put your seatbelt on and you have a person next to you and you learn to drive the car in a way that keeps you safe. The car is your safety net. You're inside the car and it's safe, and you don't handle the car in a way that is dangerous. You've got your seatbelt on. When you're done with that and you've learned to drive, maybe you want to learn to drive, I don't know, big trucks or rally cars or Formula One, whatever. You are aware now that you are going to be doing more dangerous things with the car, and it is now your responsibility to keep you safe. You cannot rely on your instructor or the car itself. You have to take the actions to keep yourself safe. Does my analogy make sense, Sandra?
Yeah. I'm also thinking of if you've got somebody else in the car with you and they're like, okay, well, we're going to go, we'll go drag race. You ready to go? The person's like, no. I was like, well, then you can't do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, the handy dandy guide also references PRIC, which is hands down the best acronym for anything ever. And I'm really mad that I didn't think of it. Now, this is not as common, but basically it's rack plus plus. So we'll go through the handy dandy guide. PRIC, PR, personal responsibility. Partners take personal responsibility for engaging in the kinky activity. Informed, partners proactively educate themselves on the risk inherent in the activity. Consensual, partners mutually consent to engaging in the kinky activity. And kink, it just rounds it off nicely, doesn't it? No, I'm kidding. Not every kinky activity is safe and sane. Acknowledging risk and taking full responsibility for understanding it is critical to this approach. That would apply more to I would say that would apply more to more intense scenes. So if you get someone to, let's say, none of the examples I'm going to give are ever going to be vilifying or kink shaming those examples. But let's say, for example, you want to be put in a full leather, full latex suit, okay, with just like 2 note holes, okay? And you consent to this, and your partner consents to this, and you're all having a jolly nice time. And maybe for whatever reason, you feel like you can't get enough air, and you have a panic attack, and you put an end to the scene, which is perfectly reasonable. You don't then get to turn round to the other person or persons in the scene and say, it's your fault. You didn't look after me safely. You need to take the personal responsibility that you were aware that a potential struggle for oxygen could occur. And you were also aware that you could react in that way. If you feel that you can't get enough air, your body may go into a panic attack. You take the responsibility for that. You don't turn around and point fingers and say, you didn't look after me safely. You go, I knew that would happen, and it did, so it's kind of my fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to shoulder the blame for yourself. You just kind of go, I was aware that could happen. You were aware that could happen. Doesn't it suck that happened? Maybe we'll do it differently next time.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll choose a different hood, or maybe you'll keep your head open, or, there's various different things you can do in that situation. But that's kind of like prick is rack plus plus,
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody within a scene needs to know about the risks involved before that scene. So prick is not something you would never just have a spontaneous scene and be doing something intense enough to require a prick code of conduct, I would say. It would be a pre-planned and a pre-thought out scene, and you would have taken the time to research exactly what it is you want to do and exactly what could happen on the back of that. So again, a little bit more intense than rack, and certainly a lot more intense than SSC. Each person would take responsibility for their safety. So those are the 3 terms that I found. And as with every time you try and categorize something, and every time you try and put it within categories, there will always be people that go, oh, that's bullshit. So unfortunately, you potentially can encounter people within the community if you say, I prefer to play within I only participate in scenes that are SSC, and they go, oh, you're such a insert whatever here, or I prefer to play in the scenes where rack is applicable. Oh, you're such a tryhard. You just want to be edgy. No. And so it goes on. You will always have people that will take issue with however you choose to do anything in life. Aren't humans great fun, guys? They're just so fucking great, though, all the time. You will, of course, find people who don't want to abide by these rules. And, that's not to say that they are bad people. But as with most, I would say, as everything within the kink community, within BDSM, you have to stick to your comfort levels. So if you want to set up a scene with somebody and you're like, I hold to SSC, that is my comfort, and they go, oh no, I don't hold to SSC, but I've got my own rules, and they're like basically the same, it's fine, you'll be fine. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. Not everyone that disagrees with you is going to be wrong, but listen to your gut is what I would say with that. But those are the 3 kind of codes of conduct that I have been able to find. Sandra, do you have any questions?
To me, I just feel like it seems as if somebody in a situation or in a scene might take feeling safe with another person and then end up putting the responsibility on the prick to be the one that knows all the rules, that'll be careful and take care of everything. So somebody's like not reading the manual, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like somebody's kind of in that, like, I'm particularly thinking of some Sam and Dean stuff I've been reading. And I just immediately get a Sam, we'll get into it. But yeah, I see the dynamic of feeling safe enough with a person and thinking that's enough, and then putting yourselves in a situation where then the prick ends up feeling like shit. Kind of situation. That's what I was thinking of. But yes. No, that's just things that were popping up in my head when you were discussing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. We are gonna now I've lectured you. Karlee's lecture party's over. Well, no, it's not. I have one more thing to do. So I'm just going to repeat my initial disclaimer from the beginning. I am not an expert in BDSM. I'm just a mortal who knows some stuff. Okay. You must do your own research before you do anything in the world of kink. And whether that research is finding a local community, whether it is extensive Googling, whether it is pairing up with a dominant or a submissive to help you learn those sort of power dynamics or help you learn various implements that you can use. Because, like, I'm gonna be straight up, you should not be hitting anybody unless you know what you're doing, okay? And a little bit of spanking is one thing. If you start bringing implements into it, you should have done some fucking research, okay? You can really hurt somebody. So, research. Jesus Christ, please be safe. Like, that is at the forefront of all three of these things. You can apply what safe means in your personal view any which way you want, but safety is at the key. That nobody's going to have a good time if it's not safe, okay? I would rank it as consensual is the number one thing, okay? Mm-hmm. And there are a million different things I can get into about people who involve outsiders in their kink without the outsider's knowledge and how fucking icky gross that is. Mm. But consensual is number one, right? And if that's cornerstone, if that's stone one, if you're Sam and you're hallucinating Lucifer, if consensual is stone one, the very next stone is safety. So, Jesus Christ, please don't, on the back of anything I say in this episode, go start whacking seven hells out of your partner and being like, Karlee said it's fine. I'm using rack, it's fine. No, don't do that. Google some shit. SSC should, this is, and also, like, I'm not speaking for the whole community, I'm just one mortal telling you my opinion. For me, SSC is where you should start. That's your basic learn to drive a car and your seatbelt. You learn how to do things within those boundaries. So do your research, find people in your community to learn from, let them guide you, listen to them. That's the start. Mm-hmm. Rack and prick are for more hardcore things. You've learned to drive, you've passed your test. Let's go drag racing. Let's get in a rally car. Let's do some Formula One stuff, whatever it is that's going to scratch this particular itch, it's certainly going to be more intense than learning to drive, Mm-hmm. But you've got to wear your seatbelt. Safety and consensual is key. That's your seatbelt. Mm-hmm. But rack and prick, hardcore. It's never, ever, ever a bad idea to be aware of the risks of anything and be aware of your personal safety and to have knowledge of your kinks and interests. And I'm not saying that if you have a certain kink, you need to go to a therapist and dig out all the childhood trauma that may have led to this kink. You're not going to do that. You're not going to know why it does something for you mentally, but you need to know the effects that it can have. So if you're hella into impact play, you need to know the dangers. You need to know what can happen with, extended damage to an area, what can happen if somebody, slips and, God forbid, your kidneys, you will fucking know about it, my friends, hits a sensitive place, like your kidneys, damages an organ, whatever. You need to be aware of these things, okay? So, for example, if you were heavy into impact play, it would be your personal responsibility to find a dom who is well-versed in this to keep yourself safe. You would not go playing with amateurs who are just learning. Not that being an amateur is bad, but you wouldn't go to the guy who's only been coming to the club for a couple of weeks. You'd go and find someone who actually knows intimately how to handle implements that are going to give you what you need. Personal responsibility. You should know. But the danger of a little bit of light spanking and a little bit of tie me up, tie me down is very different to blood play, for example. So while it's never a bad idea to be aware of the risks, some things are just more intense than others. It just is. So just keep yourself safe. Consensual, safe. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert. This is for entertainment purposes. Please seek help from a medical professional if you have concerns about your intimate health. This is for entertainment purposes. Jesus Christ. Don't sue. But now that we've gone through all of the various different bits about SSC and rack, why did this come up? Well, why did it come up? I see it a lot in Fic. It was on the list. It's been on the list for a while, I think, because it kept coming up that I would start spouting off about some kink shit, and Sandra would be like, wait, rewind what? Mm-hmm. So it went on the list with that, but I've since had various conversations with various different people who are like, what would you put this as? And what would you put that as? And it became very apparent to me that where my limits are, for example, can be vastly different to where someone else's limits are. And once you're aware of that, you start seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because I have written a lot of fics that contain, while they are not, I would say, not inherently BDSM scenes, for example, they are kink acts within a quote-unquote normal sex scene. And it became very obvious to me that, oh boy, I had tagged them wrong. Woo-hoo! Because I had tagged them in line with my limits, which are, everybody's limits are subjective. So, to pull it back around to fic, why are we here? Well, I'm not here to put every fanfic author that's ever tagged something, you know, as SSC when really it should have been rack, or, you know, haven't tagged it and really should have been tagged a certain way. I'm not here to put that on blast. I am just here to kind of maybe just delve into it a little bit and kind of take the real world situations of kink maybe and put them within the context of supernatural, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I've got a couple of common fanfic tropes, and it's worth pointing out at this point, I don't really read SDL. So these might be common as shit in SDL. I don't know, because I don't read it. Not because I have anything against it.
You just don't read
I'm a Sam. I'm a Sam mortal, guys. I'm a Sam mortal, and you know what is usually fucking missing from SDL? Sam. You know, by very dint of Dean and Castiel, there is a decided lack of long hair moose. So, it just don't appeal to me. If someone recommends it to me and they're like, holy shit, I have got the best SDL for you, I'll read it with glee. But when there's no Sam, there's no Karlee. What are you going to do? So, these are common as fuck in Wincest. But I have written about all of them in reader insert fics as well. So we'll get into it. So the first one that came to mind, these are not in any particular order, they are just the way they came into my mind. Blood play. This is not the most common trope, I would say, but it's common enough, and I've written it, so, you know. The boys carry knives. They do, you know? It just... So sometimes you just get an idea in your head, and Sam and Dean are not great at impulse control, okay? If I were going to say, like I said, I don't particularly want to categorize things, but if I were going to write something that had blood play in it, and it's really funny because I did, and I didn't categorize it like this, I would categorize it as rap, okay? It's risk aware. There is nothing safe in any definition of safe that involves knives and cutting people open. Just not even a little bit, okay? You can seriously injure someone. You can kill someone if you do this wrong, okay? And even if you do everything right and you play within all the rules and stuff, infection is a thing, guys. You can get an infection from anything, you know? So this is one of those... A lot of plays end when the scene ends. You know, a lot of kink acts ends. This is one that doesn't. This is one that extends outside of the bedroom because you have something to take care of. Infection risk is real. Okay? So I've written blood play fics and I tagged it as SSC. And you know what? I'm gonna go back and re-tag that because I don't think it is. But it's common. And I kind of just want to just take, like I said, take the actual real life world of BDSM and put it into the world of supernatural. In the real world, that would probably be something you'd apply rack rules to. But in the world of supernatural, these boys cut themselves for fun. Oh, look, I'm not a shapeshifter. Blood, silver knife, there, you know? This is nothing to them. So within the context of supernatural and the context of Sam and Dean's relationship, is this rack rules? Probably not. Should it be? Probably. You know? So I suppose I'm kind of holding myself accountable here. I'm taking myself to task for things that I wrote a few years ago that should be upgraded in 2020. It is also worth noting, just for this particular thing, and I suppose this is maybe more, this is for awareness, but this is maybe more if you're a fic writer, just because we have shit hot drugs now, HIV is a risk. It's still a risk. Okay. If you are playing with any fluids in sex, you should be aware of your partner's health status, but especially blood. Okay. In the interest of thorough research, if you are a fic writer, you should just be aware of that. You know, like, this is not like spunking on someone's face. You know, there are real world actual consequences of this. So just be aware. To bring it right back to the real world, if you read it in fic and you think, oh, this sounds fun, don't do that. Don't do that, guys. This is not for you. Okay? You have to be so careful. Okay? A little bit of like, you know, nails and scratching can like, you can get blood from that, but actual true blood play can be very dangerous. Don't do that. Don't read it in fic and think, oh, I'm going to try that next weekend. Don't do that. Be safe. Do your research. Get on Google. Okay? The next one, I see this a lot, but not not necessarily it's not necessarily tagged this way. So Sandra probably won't have seen this that much because she doesn't read Wincest as much as I do. It's a problem. Send help, guys. I don't get shit done. How many times have you read a Wincest fic where someone chokes on someone else's dick? And I don't mean they go, I mean they can't breathe. You know? That's breath play, y'all. But it's so many people put it in and they don't tag it and they don't mention it and they don't reference it. Okay? And breath play is probably the most dangerous thing on this list. You can kill someone. Okay? And it's easier than you think it might be. It really is. Okay? Now, in the spirit of taking myself to task, this is one of my favorite things. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. This turns up in so many of my fics, and I want y'all to know I never planned for it to be there. It just fucking appears. I'll just be merrily along, writing a fucking sex scene, and then all of a sudden someone's hand is around someone's throat, and I'm going, shit, when did that happen? Fuck. Well, it's there now. I'll take it out. I like it. So I was the first to hold my hand up. I do this all the time. And in real life, I would consider this to be within rack rules. This is, I feel like I'm lecturing y'all like hardcore. This is so dangerous, you guys. So dangerous. And I don't just mean like you can cause brain damage. You can kill somebody just purely from having your hands in the wrong place on somebody's throat. Okay? True breath play is less to do with not being able to breathe and more to do with oxygen hypoxia, which is when you deprive the brain of oxygen and it produces a kind of, it's not exactly euphoric, but it's kind of like being under the influence, and it makes everything feel a little bit hazy. And then when you like release somebody's throat or, you know, they get oxygen back, that produces euphoria as your brain is fully oxygenated again. Okay? But a lot of people hear breath play and they think, oh, I have to stop somebody breathing. You can kill people. Don't do that. So, oh, good God, do your research. This, in the real world, this would be, you would do this under rack rules, in my opinion. Okay? But Karlee, you tag your fics as safe, sane, and consensual. I do tag. And I've said this, breath play is in so many of my fics, and a lot of them don't even have like an SSC tag on them. I was looking through my fics before we started recording because I was like, oh, I'm going to link this and I'm going to link this, and I'm going, oh God, they just have like mild breath play on them because like 2020, 2021 Karlee didn't know the distinction, didn't draw a distinction between this. And then, well, I've learned some things and I've done some things, and you know, it is what it is. So context is key. And to bring this back around to fic, tags are subjective. It is the author that chooses the tags. And to take this right back to the beginning of the episode, what I consider to be safe, sane, and consensual, Sandra could be in a corner screaming, oh, good God! You know? It's subjective. I try to be true to life in my fics, and when I write, I always, unless I specify otherwise, I always want my readers to assume a background of knowledge. So if I write Sam not choking a reader out, but cutting off a female reader's air, for example, until such time as she almost passes out, I want you to read that with the assumed context that Sam and this reader know each other very well. They have had, extensive discussions about this. There are safety measures and mechanisms in place, and they've trained and they've practiced and they know what this is.
But feel not like you do that though, even if you don't tag it. I always remember reading like in your notes or whatever that you let the reader know the background, even if it's just a couple of sentences about established relationship. This is, so I appreciate that you're going to go back and do the things with the tags, but I think you do that pretty well, where I know there'd be other people that, wouldn't take the time to put that into context for the reader before they get started into the fic. So
I try.
Yeah.
I try. I do try. But like I said, a lot of times, and I don't know, Sandra, you tell me, do you see it a lot in reader insert, like Dean not choking out a reader, but, maybe being more aggressive in a blowjob than...
Oh, yeah, I've seen it, and I don't think I've seen those tags in a lot of situations. Even like you mentioned knife play. I just see knife play. I don't see anything else maybe, in... How are these tags just in AO3? Like if you type SSC, it just pops up as something you can add. Okay. And rack too, all that. Okay.
It spells them out. So you wouldn't, it wouldn't come up SSC. It would come up, say, Sane Consensual
right.
and risk aware, Consensual Kink as well.
Yeah.
But like, Wincest is a bit different though. So if we're hauling back into like not real world context, the context of fan fiction, Wincest is a context all to itself. You can show me, and I have read fics that contain very heavy kink, and the only safety measures that are in place is the fact that it's Wincest, and they are a law unto themselves. It is so often written that, and we see it in the show, Sam and Dean know each other so well that they don't need, they can say 1,000 words with a look, a hand gesture, anything. They don't, quote unquote, need these kind of rules to play safely. But I would like you to consider that by dint of being Winchesters, they're actually never playing safely. And I don't mean the whole incesting, that's fine.
In general,
do what you want with that. They are just not well-adjusted people. And they're not operating
don't play by the same rules anyway. Yeah, the rules just don't apply to them, really.
Yeah. So, again, if you put these acts within the context of Wincest, not saying, Sam is gonna put his dick all the way down Dean's throat and keep it there until Dean starts to lose consciousness. If you don't tag for that, but it happens, I'll be like, well, I assume that's probably fine. I assume that they've had a conversation about it, or I assume that, Sam knows what Dean's I'm about to lose consciousness face looks like, and do just accordingly,
Yeah.
But you cannot take that kind of context back out into the real world. It is so unsafe, guys. So unsafe.
I know you said you don't read, a lot of SDL, and I don't really read a lot of it either. But I mean, just taking that relationship, you're talking about an angel, so there's all of these different, again, it's fan fiction for a reason too, so don't immediately try to just rubber stamp that onto reality. situation. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that is not to say we're however far into this episode we are, and that is not to say that I think any of you wonderful listeners read something in fic and go and buy like knives and chains and things. I genuinely don't.
No.
I don't.
But that's why we did fact versus fiction.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this whole series is this is what you see in fic, but this is how it really is in real life.
Yeah.
So this is the third and the last kind of common fanfic trope, but this comes with a lot of baggage, guys. Pain play. I'm the problem, it's me. I've written this properly loads of times. Fully loads of times. It's super, super common in Wincest, though. Is it common in Read It Insert, Sandra? Do you see it a lot?
I'm sure it is. I don't read it.
See, there you go, guys.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but I just don't, I don't seek that out. Like, I may come across something that has that in there, but yeah, I think just by definition, too, if you're talking about, I mean, I can remember reading it in a couple of different things that we've read, like Cannon Fodder and stuff like that. That's reader.
Oh yeah, no, not reader. I was like, yeah, no, I recommended gagging for it, and you were like, I don't want to read it, decent pain. So there you go. I didn't even I would never have outed Sandra and been like, what is something that you blah 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 blah. I would never have done that. But she proffered this information herself. I think pain play is the tits, guys. I love it. I write it, I read it, the fucking nuts. Sandra doesn't like it. So pain play for me would be like, you know, safe, sane, and consensual. It's fine. Whereas Sandra's over there, right the way over on the prick end of the spectrum, going, Jesus. You know? So it's, you know, it can be that diametrically opposed. But you see this so much in Wincest, and it's really common to see Sam and Dean relating pain to pleasure in various different means, and there have been 1,001 amazing fanfics that explore that relationship between pain and pleasure for the boys, and how growing up would have affected it, and how the fact that they get tossed around by monsters every week affects it. And if you live in pain your whole life, whether that is physical pain or emotional pain, the boys get kicked around by a monster every week. You know, they probably have like one good day in autumn when nothing hurts. You know, where they're not, where no one's dislocated a shoulder, no one's got stitches, no one's walking funny because they rolled their ankle. They get one good day a year. And by fuck, they enjoy it. At a certain point, pain just becomes a part of your life and you just work around it. Like, it's just something hurts all of the time, and you can't just not do things because something hurts.
Well,
it just melds into
tier level, your threshold changes. Like my husband, for example, like he has MS, but he deals with pain on a level daily that for him, like what would be an 8 for me, he probably has dulled it down to like, say, a 2 or a 3, you know, like, so there's different, like you said, the experiences and what's going on within your body changes for person to person. Yeah, the boys their pain threshold is so
must be these are people that could do just a little finger prick with the point of a silver knife to be like, look, I am not a shapeshifter or whatever. Instead choose to do like whole gouges out of their forearm to achieve the same. Like, you could just nick your finger and be like, look, no sizzle, I'm fine. They don't.
Yeah.
And this is not in relation to this episode at all, but I would just like to remind you, especially my neurodivergent peeps out there, the level of pain that you should be in daily is 0. You should not be in pain. Any level of pain is not normal. Okay? Especially for my neurodivergent peeps who just go, nah, it's fine. You know, no pain is normal. Pain level 0 is normal and how your body is supposed to operate. If you are not operating on those levels, please attempt to seek medical help.
Yeah.
I am aware that is not easy, and I personally will tell you that I do not see a medical professional for a lot of issues in my life because I can't be bothered with the conversation that starts, have you tried losing weight about it? So I'm aware that that is a pie in the sky suggestion, but just in case you need a reminding today, the appropriate level of pain for any healthy body is 0. If it is not 0, that's his problem. Please try and do something about it. But apart from that, right, off my soapbox, back to this. So many great fics out there that explore that dynamic. And a comment that was left by a friend of mine is a lot of fics that you see out there is when someone is at a really low point. One of the brothers is at a really low point. So if we're thinking early seasons, canon compliant fics and AU fics as well, dependent on the story. Sam's hating himself about his powers. Dean's having a minute about, is he going to be able to save Sam? Is he going to have to kill him? John sacrificed his life for him. Dean's mad about Sam and Ruby. Sam's mad about other things, And it's so easy to, as an author, to just let them fall into these kind of scenes where someone is punishing someone else, or one of the brothers is asking to be punished for perceived slight because the pain is less about pleasure and more about, Sandra, what is the word that I want? Absolution.
Yeah, forgiveness.
Yeah,
right?
Forgiveness. Yeah. Absolution. Repentance.
Yeah.
I think that might be the word I was wanting.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to let them fall into that. But that is not even under a BDSM umbrella, I would say. It's certainly not falling under any SSC code of conduct. It's not even falling under RAC, really. That is hurt people hurting people. Okay? And were we in the real world, that would be abuse. So it's great to read it in fic. And love a bit of Dean Wump or a bit of Sam Wump. I fully don't. Please give me a happy ending. I really don't like it when they're all sad and they're still sad at the end of the fic. I don't like that. But just please bear in mind that out in the real world, someone in that mental state of seeking pain as punishment or as a way to be absolved of perceived slight or sins, that is not someone who is risk aware or sane or taking any kind of personal responsibility for themselves, and that is not a safe situation. That is not someone who can safely and sanely consent. And consent is stone one, guys. That's where we're starting from. So it's great to read it in fic. And again, I don't think any of you guys are stupid. I don't think you're going to go out and read something in fic and then, go and reenact it and put yourself in the hospital. But that is the whole point of the series. These are the things you see in fic, and here is actually the reality of the situation. But if we pull away from the very special Wincest dynamic and context, pain play is a kind of safer kink to explore than the other two on this list because you are hampered by your own threshold. It's difficult to do injury to yourself if you are the one imposing those limits, Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and you can there are a multitude of ways to cause pain that do not necessarily cause damage. I'm going to tangent off hardcore here. If you are assessed by paramedics or you present to the hospital for any particular reason, it's called the Glasgow Coma Score in the UK. It might be called something different in the US. But one of it's a method to gauge consciousness of somebody. So one of the things is like, do you react to verbal stimuli? Do you react to physical stimuli? Do you react to pain stimuli? Now, hospitals are not in the habit, and paramedics are not in the habit of punching you in the face, or breaking a limb to see if you're awake. There are many, many ways that you can cause pain without causing damage. So, as long as everybody knows what they're doing and you've researched it extensively, this is a safer area to play in physically. Unfortunately, as I said, you don't have to dig out all the deep-rooted childhood trauma reasons why you might enjoy a particular kink. You don't. But pain play do tend to be linked to some of those aforementioned childhood trauma. So you kind of have to go in with your eyes open there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, physically, it's harder to cause damage, but mentally, it's much easier because it's a very vulnerable thing to explore. You know? So just be safe, please. For the love of fucking God, guys. Be safe. Good Lord. Nobody sue me. I've put enough disclaimers in this episode. Nobody sue me. So we have actually come to the end of my absolutely excellent Google Doc. So any thoughts, Sandra? Do you feel educated? Do you know if you wanted to go out and, engage in a BDSM scene? Do you feel like you know how to do that safely now?
If I were so inclined, yes.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, I'm not going to hold a gun to your head and be like, Sandra, go engage in a BDSM scene. If you felt so inclined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel educated?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Good. Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. So I will hand the floor over to you if you have any sort of like final thoughts, closing thoughts, and then we'll go through links and
no. I mean,
that's a whole heap of information I just laid on you guys, including Sandra, whose answer when I went, "Do you have any questions for this episode?" went, "Yeah, all of it. I don't know how." Not like that, obviously, in her lovely East Coast accent, but still, that was the consensus, which is, I don't know what I don't know. So, I don't have any questions.
I think that I think the way that you explained to like the difference between rack and learning about prick a little bit more was definitely very interesting. Because like I said, I've been reading stuff lately that I feel has that in it, like rack plus, you know what I mean? Like it's just more of that. Yeah, and when we keep going back to the boys and how they put themselves through torture, sometimes in the beginning of a lot of the fics or whatever, and coming back from that. It's interesting. You've done it in Demonic Junkies. Dreamer's done it in Sandman. And it's just getting them to another place entirely where then there's trust and they feel safe again. I just think is an interesting story, like a story arc, Yeah, I'm still waiting for yours to do that, but I think Dreamers got there in Sandman. Although who knows?
Still waiting for me to fix Junkies.
Yeah. Who knows? Because I haven't started the last bit yet, so who knows what goes on with that one? But and your stuff with Sam and Reader, like I know I've seen pain play, I've seen blood play with knives. I feel like I've seen, but again, consensual situations being very important. But I do think that the boys are a foil, a mirror, a projection, a trial, like in fan fiction too. Like this is where you can explore things in a safe way, even if it's not necessarily safe what you're writing, getting things out of your head with them for a lot of people, I think they are very therapeutic in certain ways. Or they let you realize that, no, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or just no, it's like, this isn't how someone, should be treated. Let's fix it, like that kind of a thing. So I think you kind of hit it on the head though, too, about the boys and pain and how they want to inflict it on themselves for wrongs they feel they've done, even if it's not wholeheartedly, it's not warranted in every respect. and
Well,
how that comes across.
when you need therapy as badly as they fucking do,
Yeah.
you ain't got words. So you gotta find a way to, release the pressure somehow so you can stuff everything back in the box and carry on pretending that you don't need therapy.
I just feel like the safety part is so important. Like you have to, like you've said, you really have to feel safe with your partner.
Yeah.
Or none of it's going to jive or work out well, because there has to be that out. And even if things done accidentally or by mistake, like you said, there has to be that understanding that it wasn't done for that outcome, like that was not the intention. But it's very, very important to think about all the safety issues with, like, the scenes and different things like that and what you are doing. I mean, I remember I was asking you about, like, just spanking. Like, I was like, oh, and you're like, what? Be careful where you hit him. I was like, what? Like, careful where you hit him. I was like, oh, okay. So I had to look that up. Like, it's like, because that's just like, spanking is just like, you just think about spanking, not what that could do to somebody. So yeah, lots of things. Lots of things to think about. It could be, I feel like for some people it could be very overwhelming. Just like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Absolutely.
Too much.
And I mean, at this point, guys, listeners, I'll open the floor. If there's something in this episode that I've mentioned, or there's something that's been niggling in the back of your head, they're like, oh, want to know what that is, but I don't want to end up on a Google list. I'm on fucking loads of Google lists, so I don't care. I'll research it. Drop us a message. You can send us anonymous messages. We will never, ever, ever out anybody's name or username, anything like that. Ask. If there's stuff that you don't know that you want to know, but you're scared to Google or ask somebody, ask me. I give zero fucks. I got a VPN subscription. I'm grand. So I will explore. So, like, Sandra, with the spanking thing, if you wanted me to do a bit more of a deeper dive into impact play and, how to do it safely and things like that, again, I'm not an expert. I just know enough to be dangerous. I will go and I will do some research and I will find you some really great resources to go and take a look at that stuff with. Yeah. I will do the things, guys.
Yeah.
Let us know.
No, I think everybody should definitely, like, take Karlee up on that. I've already exhausted there. That one. That was a big one. When we opened the floodgates. Yeah.
Was that for everything? The spanking, was that for everything she does in magic?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
What did I tell you?
You just told me, make sure you don't hit them in a certain spot that's going to be painful. Like go for the fleshy bit. Like, don't go for...
yeah, don't go for the back of the thighs.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, it's just like it's just something that not a lot of people think about, and I'm like, oh no, there are so many areas there that you could really hurt somebody.
That's the problem. Is I think you've got so many people that would just be so gung ho and just like bring home a whip or bring home this or bring home that, and it's like, no, you've got to research this stuff, like, and sometimes it's not just asking somebody at the sex toy shop, like, what their thoughts are on it, like, and you've got to get your partner to be fully on board and know your partner well enough that they might say yeah, but they might be saying yeah because they don't want to disappoint you. And that's when you have to be a responsible partner in that situation. Yeah. So,
and I think that's a really big part of consent as well. Consent is all about trust. But if we're getting into things like this, you have to trust as the I mean, I wouldn't call Dean a sub in any way in some sunny day, but as the receiving partner, for example, Dean needed to be able to trust that Julie knew what she was doing, or
that if she didn't know, she would take instruction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, from somebody that does know, and you feel safe getting the instruction from that person. Again, it's a different dynamic. You're talking Dean and a female reader, again, which is very different than Dean and Sam.
Yeah. But then even when I did quarter after one, My female reader in that whipped Dean's ass with a belt, but it was his belt that he gave to her. So it was on the understanding that that would have been a rack scene. Dean was risk aware. He knew that maybe she didn't know exactly how to handle this implement he was giving her, but he knew enough to be able to guide her properly. So yeah. And I mean, I think my reader did know maybe more than Dean thought she knew, but that's irrelevant. He didn't know that at the time of giving her his belt. So you know, but if you have anything you want us to do a deeper dive into, you know, like I'm gonna be honest, I might do an episode on impact play anyway, just for the lols. So let us know if you want that. But if there is anything else, let us know. Some links that will be, these will all be in the Google document, which the link to the Google document will be in the description below. So I have a submissive guide, which is, I referenced that earlier on as sort of the difference in spirit between SSC and RAC. But they have a sort of an article on SSC and they have an article on RAC. Kink 101, who provided us the handy dandy guide image, they also have like a page on SSC, RAC, and prick and the differences and things like that. I still fucking love that as an acronym. That just makes me laugh. I have a few Fic Recs for you this time, guys. So I have a Wincest one, and you've heard me wax lyrical about this one. It's Runaway Dreamers, Sandman Verse. Be not afraid of the various walls of tags and the word count. All right, it's fucking enormous. It is, but it runs the fucking spectrum. It really does. It fully runs the spectrum of consensual non-consent, subdrop, traffic lights, and safe words. Various explorations of kink, versatile, switches, the whole gamut. All right, it's fucking amazing. And Dreamer handles it so well. And no matter what the boys are doing, they are always consensual and safe. So it's a great read for just, you know, it's not an intro to kink and BDSM by any means. It assumes prior knowledge, but if you want something that runs the whole spectrum of handling all the various different things that can happen in and around scenes, it's great. Be not afraid of the wall of tags. Be not afraid of the word count. Just take it, you know, a chapter at a time or whatever. You'll have the best time. That is the only Wincest rec I have for you this time, guys. I have a few of my own because, as I said, I've written a lot more kink fics than I thought I had written, and some of them are not tagged as they should be. So I'll be going back and amending that. But the first one I'm going to rec is it's called Cut, and it's tagged Safe, Sane, and Consensual, and it is blood play. So very brief rundown. It's just a one scene snapshot, which is my comfort zone, and I don't know how these gigantic fucking sagas keep happening to me. Carefully avoid looking at my Google Docs at the moment. It's just a one shot. It's just a scene. We have Sam tied down, engaging in knife play, blood play with his female partner, who is going to, they actually cut their name into his stomach with a sharp knife. And it's very much focused on like disabusing people of the notion that being a dominant is about abusing your partner and, you know, barking orders at them and being cruel. It's very Sam wants this. Sam wants this pain, this hurt, because it does something for him. And he also wants this mark, this brand of his partner. And it's from the female reader's perspective. She's giving it to him and everybody has a good time. And there's aftercare at the end because you very rarely see fics of mine without aftercare. And if aftercare is on the list of things that you're going to request an episode on, it's already on the list. Don't sweat it. Next one by me is A Tale of Two Minds. Now, I will pre-warn you, this fic is not for everybody. It is, and I will get Sandra to weigh in on this actually, because I know it hits like exactly zero of the things that Sandra ever wants to read about ever. This was written when I was in a very, very bad state of mind, and it is a whole mess of self-harm and gender issues and, really unsafe behavior. It's written to the lyrics of Kill Pop by Slipknot. So, that should probably clue you in that it's not going to be great, but there is one specific scene within it where it's a Sam, reader insert Fic again, and he whips her until she's bloody and screaming and begging for more. So it's tagged rap, like it's hardcore. And I included it just because it is tagged rap, because it was something I wrote that I was like, oh shit, no, these people are not sane. Oh fuck. So, read the warnings. There are heavy warnings on the Fic. Read them, be aware of them. It's not for everybody, but if you wanted to see what my interpretation of rack might be, that is one to go look at. And I'll just hand over to Sandra because they read it because I wrote it, but I know you didn't enjoy it.
Well,
no, I don't mean like you thought it was bad. Yeah, because she came to me and she was like, it was really well written. I hated everything in it, but it was really well written.
I think because of how, it's extremely personal, so I mean, it's basically just like bearing your soul to get beaten and whipped too. So, but I mean, I think it falls in line with that. So I think it doesn't hurt to have it there if somebody wants to read it, like you said, to get that perspective. It's definitely on the, you like to say cerebral. I think it's on the cerebral end of it. So I think as long as people are aware, and they will be, if they want to read it, they can always nope out of it if it's not their thing. So that's always that personal responsibility.
Take awareness. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's fine. I would leave that in.
Okay. Yep. And the last one, this just turned into hype. I'm going to read my things, guys. The numbers fuel my soul, which will be far more apt when this episode comes out, because the AO3 episode will be out by then. But the last one I want to recommend is it's called "Give Me Novacaine." It's a song-inspired fic. Green Day song "Give Me Novacaine." It's a great song, by the way. Go listen to it. It's fucking back when Green Day was good. It's good. But this one it's more of a formal scene than a lot of things I write, which tend to just be kink things in normal spontaneous sex.
Is that the one that starts at the party? Which one starts at the party?
That's Want Your Bite.
Okay. No. Okay. Gotcha.
No, that one ends. It doesn't start at the party. They're getting ready for the party, and then there's the party.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Want Your Bite.
Okay.
That also features some kink activities, but I didn't put it in here because I already had 3, and I was like, I feel like that's enough. But honestly, if you wanted to have a meander through how Karlee views kink, you could go and read a lot of my things. But Give Me Novacaine is more formal. So this features me kind of trying to show how it should be done, maybe. So we've got like check-ins, we've got a confirmation of a safe word, a confirmation of a normal, of a non-verbal safe word, which I don't know necessarily that fits anywhere in this, but you should always have a verbal and a non-verbal safe word, whatever you're doing. Sometimes you can't speak, and sometimes that's because you physically can't speak, and sometimes that's because you mentally can't speak. So you should always have a non-verbal safe word. But that one it's just Sam taking care of a female reader in a way that they need, And again, it wasn't in a great place when I wrote it, but I felt better afterwards. So it's on the internet forever now. But I'm really proud of that, because I feel like it hits a lot of the how to do it right notes. And I would say, I would classify it under SSC, but there is breath play in there, so maybe I shouldn't. Go give it a read. Let me know what you think. But if you wanted to take just a look at how I view kink, and a really what I consider to be a really great example of all of the kink things. Fair warning to the start of Sandman, read the fucking notes. You need them. And I would have put Sandra stuff in here, but she writes really nice things. Her sex scenes are always really just nice and soft and vanilla, and that's
yeah.
No, that is not a criticism, because you know what, I need that sometimes. I need that. So that is, I'm not excluding Sandra on any basis other than the fact that they don't write this shit, so I can't include them in this one. But yeah, so links to any articles or anything that I have used, and the Wikipedia stuff right at the beginning as well. I wouldn't necessarily advise Wikipedia as a place to learn about BDSM, but Wikipedia is the place most of us start at, so I don't know, it's in there. And as we said, links to Submissive Guide and Kink 101, links to AO3, blah 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 blah. And with that, fact versus fiction, SCS versus rack. I am done lecturing you guys.
Oh, just
any final thoughts, Sandra?
Thank you, Karlee, for all of the knowledge and all the research and all the digging into it. I think we're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you to explain all these things.
Much.
So
Thank you.
I appreciate all your work on this. It was good. But yeah, let us know and give Karlee more homework.
I love it, guys. I love it. Give me homework. Say to me, send us an email, send us a message. Sandra will tell you how to do that in a moment. Contact us in some way and be like, Karlee, can you please go and research this weird, obscure kink that I heard of this one time in a bar in God knows where, and I've never been able to find out what it is. Give me homework. I love this shit. I love it. So where can they send us my homework, Sandra? Masterful segue.
They can reach out to us via email at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com. You can comment on Spotify and use the Q&A section to share your thoughts. And all of our contact details are on our website, idlingintheimpala.com. Go check it out.
Don't forget to also like, comment, share it with your friends, share it around, share it to Facebook. Please don't share it to Facebook. Share it whatever you want, guys. Follow and subscribe wherever you access your podcast, but especially if you watch or listen to us on YouTube. Likes, comments, subscriptions, all those kind of things really help us with the YouTube algorithm. All hail its benevolence. In the description, you will find the causes that we are championing. If you need help from any of those charities, places, or information, that is what they are there for. If you can help out any of those charities so they can keep helping others, that would be amazing, but no pressure as always. And with that, we will say thank you for joining us in the back seat, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.